The Rams have given Matt Stafford's agent permission to speak to other teams about the 37-year-old's trade value. Coach Sean McVay addressed the club's approach on the Fitz and Wit podcast.
There's no dispute, and let's not get it twisted in regards to anybody wanting him to be our quarterback. Now, there's layers to it. At the end of the day, you know, we had something in mind, he had something in mind, and nobody was right or wrong, but there does have to be an element of understanding, well, what does that future look like without this freaking G that's been our quarterback for the last 4 years? He and I have had great dialogue throughout this process. I know where we wanted to be able to end up, but these decisions aren't made in a vacuum, and that's kind of the challenging part about it. But love this guy, and he's been incredible for us.
Candor's great for shows like this one, but Graz, it leads to more questions. What's your feeling about when Stafford's status with the Rams might all be resolved?
Well, all parties involved would like it to resolve soon. The Rams want to know because if he's not going to be there, they need to know what they're going to do. The Giants and the Raiders and any other teams that have expressed interest in him want to know what the Rams are going to do because they need to know if they need to move on to their plan Bs. So I would think by the end of this week or the early part of next week, after everyone's been in Indianapolis together for all this time, that we'll have a sense of it. Matthew Stafford and the Rams have not agreed on what his contract will look like if he plays there. He does not want to play for the current number, which is $27.5 million. He thinks that's far too low for a starting quarterback of his caliber, and he's absolutely right. So if they can't reach some sort of agreement on the contract, then he ends up getting traded with the Giants and the Raiders as the two teams to watch. You talk to people around town, most people say, I can't believe they won't get this figured out. They have a good thing going there. Why wouldn't he end up with the Rams? And he very well may. But it's going to take some work, as Sean McVay was referencing.
And I think the reason everybody's surprised, look, the best spot for Stafford is to stay at the Rams. And the best thing for the Rams would be if they have Stafford. In the Sean McVay sound, though, I think the thing that stood out most to me was that Matthew Stafford had an idea of, you know, essentially what he's saying is what his contract should be. The Rams had an idea what his contract should be. And it sounds like they were really far apart. You know, it typically doesn't happen where, you know, 37-year-old quarterbacks, you know, are getting paid at the very top of the market. But when you're playing at a high level, and quite honestly, when you're playing so well that you're a playoff team because of your quarterback and you're competing with the eventual Super Bowl winner because of your quarterback, then he probably does deserve to be paid at the top of the market at the quarterback position.
And Tim, you talk about playing well since Stafford traded to the Rams. In addition to the Super Bowl win, he has the 6th most passing yards in that time, dating back to 2021. But with the Commanders, Coach Dan Quinn on Jaden Daniels' upcoming encore to a stellar rookie season.
One of the things that I love about him and why we don't try to put expectations at the start, he's literally the definition of that. Constant improvement and going for it and keep getting better. And so those are the things as we're going into year 2. This is my expectations for him and for all the guys is to, like, how much better can we get? And so for him, there'll be some things specifically with his game that we want to work on. And, like, knowing him, that's exactly what's going to happen. And I do love that about our team.
Lots to love in D.C., but a lot to replenish. The Commanders' 53-man roster is currently half that. Total of 28 unrestricted free agents remain unsigned out of Washington. That's the most in the NFL. They do, though, have more than $80 million in cap space, 4th most in the league currently, as they attempt to bring back Zach Ertz, Dante Fowler Jr., veteran linebacker Bobby Wagner, among others. Booger, we got lots of money with which to work. How can Washington continue to pay to build around their young QB?
Well, I think first and foremost, you got to protect him. I think anytime you get a franchise quarterback, I think you got to make sure your offensive line is tight. That way your quarterback is not running for his life the way Patrick Mahomes was in the Super Bowl. And once you protect him, now get him some more weapons. I love Terry McLaurin as a number 1 receiver. I think the world forgot about him, but the fact that Jaden Daniels came to Washington reminded everyone that Terry McLaurin is a top 5 to 6 receiver in this league. But you got to get more. You got to get some help. Zach Ertz can't be your number two receiver. I like De'Ami Brown, but De'Ami Brown to me is more of a 3 than a 2. So get this young man some help and take advantage of the rookie contract because he's going to be on there another 2 years. Protect him, get him some weapons, and allow this young man to go cook, Tim.
I completely agree about getting them some weapons. I mean, you think about the guys they were playing. I mean, it was Olamide Zaccheaus, it was Jamison Crowder. It was, what he was doing with, players that probably weren't, seen as, to your point, Booger, as guys that were, number 2 receivers. So I do think being active in free agency, maybe they're in the game, with T. Higgins, would not be a bad idea. Maybe you also look at veteran receivers, guys that are free, like Chris Godwin. Maybe there's more there. Maybe it's Cooper Kupp. Guys that can be complementary receivers, because I agree with the assessment on McLaurin that he could be a number 1 guy. Obviously, if paired with Higgins, you'd have 2 ones. But I think helping the quarterback, on the perimeter certainly would help a lot.
Matt, I know wide receiver isn't the sexiest position in this class. Any pass catchers you'd like to see them take?
Oh, my gosh, yeah. The back end of round 1 is where the wide receivers are at this year. It might not be super sexy at the top outside of Travis Hunter, but back into round 1, we might see the first true receiver off the board in this range. So I think Matthew Golden from Texas is someone that makes a lot of sense here because the underneath ability. He also had 25 catches of 20-plus yards this past year. That was the most in FBS. And then Luther Burden III from Missouri. Some of it has also kind of been forgotten about this year because he had a quieter season for the Tigers, but he has that underneath ability. And the creativity at Cliff Kingsbury, I think, works very well with both of these guys who can be that underneath option. But with Burden especially, he's taken snaps at Wildcat quarterback. He's played in the backfield. He can do so much for you pre and post snap. And then the juice that he gives you after the catch, because McLaurin is a true number 1. He's a great deep threat. They need that intermediate option that the guys mentioned. So the back end of round 1 is a good spot this year to get a wide receiver because, again, we're probably only going to see Travis Hunter in the top 10. We might not see a receiver go in the teens. So the 20s is where they could start to come off the board.
Browns coach Kevin Stefanski talked about meeting the top QBs on the board, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders.
Spent time with Shedeur today, spent time with a lot of the players over the last 48 hours, a lot of speed dating going on. But Shedeur is a very, very impressive young man, was raised the right way. Obviously, he's a heck of a football player. That's evident off the tape, but really impressed with the person. Very, very impressed with Cam as well. Just his career, where he's been, is a unique path, but knows football really well. Was very impressed with his meeting in terms of his recall, going back to his Washington State days and how he saw defense, how he progressed, how his processing worked. He kind of could talk through all of that. I was very impressed with the young man.
Hey, man, it's been a rough go for the Browns and their quarterbacks. Since returning to the NFL in 1999, the late 1900s, Cleveland QBs rank last across the board in win percentage, touchdown interception ratio, and yards per attempt. The Browns have had 40 different starting QBs in that span, which comes out to almost 2 per season. Browns QB jersey guy is about to get more practice with the sewing machine. Hey, welcome into our NFL Live studios. Tim Hasselbeck, Matt Miller, Dan Graziano with us. Booger McFarland's going to help with our third down pass rush at some point. I'm Phil Murphy. Matt, we're already seeing some of the top 10 creativity in these mock drafts. What more can you tell us about what the Browns plan to do with that number 2 overall pick?
Yeah, everything that I'm hearing this week, everything I heard at the East-West Shrine game at the recent Senior Bowl was that the Browns will draft a quarterback at number 2 overall. Adam Schefter said that yesterday on the Mel Kiper mock draft special. The Browns have really centered on the quarterback position. They understand the contract with Deshaun Watson prohibits them from being active in the Sam Darnold sweepstakes or the Matthew Stafford sweepstakes. So it is all about identifying a quarterback in this draft, having the conviction to draft them at number 2 overall, and then being able to build a team around them. We heard Kevin Stefanski talk about Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward. My inclination right now is that Cam Ward is the favorite in that clubhouse to be the pick because of the elements that you play in the AFC North. You have Lamar Jackson there. You have Joe Burrow. You have MVP quarterback play. You need someone who has that dynamic arm strength, the running ability. They do have some weapons in Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku. They've invested in the offensive line. The big key, do they have Myles Garrett? That definitely is going to make it easier for any rookie quarterback. But I would say right now, the favorite for that number 2 overall pick is Cam Ward with the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, and assuming both quarterbacks available, I think it's probably the right choice. You alluded to some of it in terms of the arm strength. I do think he's an elite thrower. I do think he's got elite pocket awareness. And all the reasons you said in terms of money that's been invested at quarterback, you have to beat the market at quarterback. One of the ways you beat it is by drafting a quarterback that's on a rookie deal if he can play at a high level. I would just say this too, drafting at 2 or whether you're drafting at 12, or if you think the player should be at spot 12. If he's good enough to go at 12, he should be good enough to go at 2 if you are a quarterback needy team and a team that needs to draft a quarterback for the future. So, look, I think Kevin Stefanski does a good job coaching the position. And I think that, either guy has enough talent, but for me, the choice would be Cam Ward.
Yeah, and Matt referenced the Deshaun Watson contract. I mean, it's important to recognize the Browns as a quarterback-needy team. Deshaun Watson has 2 years left on his contract. He recently had 2 Achilles rupture repair surgeries in a span of 3 months. They don't know if he's going to be able to play this season, and if so, how much of it. So that means he's got basically 1 year left on. So if they have the opportunity to draft a franchise guy at number 2 overall, if somebody they believe in for post-Watson, then there's no reason not to do it now.
Well, with no division title since 1989, instability under center could be pointed to front and center as the cause of that. And in the last 20 years, only one QB has started every game of a season at Cleveland under center. That's Baker Mayfield.